of the kickoff events that you went to. And I'm really excited to chat with them all and hear about their experiences. And you've all landed these wonderful internships, but what do you do next? So to start off, would love to just have you go around and introduce yourselves, your current role, and what your relationship is to the MCC program, whether you're an employer partner, what your role is, and whether you participated in the past. So Mina, if we could start with you.
Yeah, of course. Perfect. I'm not muted. Hi, everyone. My name is Mina Breer. I work at LL Bean. I am a talent acquisition coordinator, so in the HR space. I was an intern for LL Bean in 2021 after graduation. So it was nice. The world was kind of odd post-COVID, so it was a great just like internship to be a part of. And then connection to MCC. LL Bean has always been connected to MCC for the internship, but I think in the past years we have tried to make the partnership a little bit more robust. So I love participating in this panel, different MCC events, and then as an intern, I was completely virtual. So having MCC as just another cohort of interns in Maine was just a great connection to have and continue to have. Yeah.
Thanks, Mina. And David, if you could go.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Senior Vice President, Head of Talent, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging for Bangor Savings Bank. Have been involved with internships pretty much forever. I did three internships as an undergrad and have been sponsoring interns for a long, long time. I think Bangor Savings Bank has been with Maine Career Catalyst from the very start. We really believe in internships. We believe that internships are the beginning part developing Maine's future workforce. So we are all in and always present regarding internships.
Thank you. And Jacob, you're going to have a little bit more of a complicated answer because I would love to hear you share about your current position, but also the internships you held as you participated in the MCC program. Um, and if you want to give the shortest plug for the MCC Alumni Steering Committee, which is the other descriptor we have under your name there, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Meg. Yeah, so my name is Jacob Curtis. I'm currently a medical staff office analyst at Intermed PA. My relationship with MCC is we date that back to probably end of 2022. I participated as an intern, or I was an intern at Unum, summer of 23. And then last summer at Maine Health. And I'm also part of the MCC alumni committee, where we have actually planned the event for tomorrow. Unfortunately, I won't be there, but I'll try to stop in later on. But MCC has been a great part of the internships I've done in the last few years.
Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, so as you can see, we've got a panel of experts on internships in lots of different ways. So as we kick off the questions and really getting into this conversation, if there's anything that comes up for you that you would like clarification or a question that comes to mind, feel free to utilize that Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I'll be checking that periodically throughout the conversation. I'll give a little reminder towards the end of the conversation, and towards the end of this hour here, we'll turn to you all for some questions to our panelists. So just know that that is there as a resource should anything come up for you. But let's get started. So the first question I have is for you both, David and Mina. In terms of starting off strong, beginning of the summer, what would you say are some key habits or practices that interns can develop early on to make a strong impression and get started on the right foot?
David, do you want to
Want to
start?
start, Mina? Yeah.
Sure, I'll go ahead. So one thing that I think I really see from the beginning that has the interns really like making that strong impression is taking the initiative is one thing, asking the questions. One of the reasons we love the internship program here at LL Bean is because interns are bringing in their other perspectives, questions, insights, experiences. So that's really important to us. And then also just showing curiosity and really willingness to learn, jumping into other projects that might not necessarily be on their career path or just always raising their hand for extra tasks or opportunities to learn is some of the things that we're really looking at.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mina. I think that curiosity and inquisitiveness are interns like superpower. You guys are so good at this, and it's so important to continue to demonstrate it. Again, I'm that you've put yourself out there now as interns. Just view yourself as an employee. What makes a great employee? Along with curiosity and inquisitiveness, it's just about being present. Like at everything you're doing, be totally present. Um, in addition to asking a lot of questions, just really start connecting with people, not just on the surface, but how do you build deeper relationships, getting to know people, getting to share more of yourself. Our interns actually just shared storyboards, right before this meeting, where they were just sharing parts of themselves with one another. So I think it's really important to go deep beyond what we see in the surface and not to take any individual for granted. And I think what Mina said as well is one of my best career advices for young people is talk to leaders and ask, like, what keeps you up at night? What are some of the pain points for you, and how can I help you? So although you may be young, you can still solve problems, right? And you can help organizations out with maybe something that they don't have time to work on. So I feel like that's one of the benefits of interns is you can get things done that some full-time employees can't get done because you have time. So keep asking, what else can I be doing to eliminate the pain points and to help you sleep at night, CEO or my boss?
I love that. And Jacob, turning to you, what kind of advice do you have for interns in their first weeks? If you think back to 2022, what do you wish you had known when you first started one of those two internships?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things I'll mention and to kind of go off what David has said just a minute ago. Um, though you have time, time is not your friend. Also, you have a certain amount of time to complete the internship. So knowing that in the first week or two, kind of planning out what you like to get out of the internship, also how you're going to add value, is very important. Time flies by very fast, right? So being able to plan that out accordingly so that way you can optimize your internship experience, also providing value. And see, when I advice that I wish I knew when I first started was that really hitting first impressions, very making sure you get good first impressions early on, because that will lead to a better internship relationship with your manager or team, and making sure that you've really just kind of you know shown that you are going to provide value just in the first few weeks is very important.
Yeah, awesome. Um, and then continuing on as interns spend more time at their companies and their organizations, and they're continuing kind of like assimilate to what's going on at those places of work. This is a question for all three of you. What is a good way or the best way for an intern to learn and adapt to a company's culture, whether that is in person or in a hybrid or remote environment? What kind of advice do you have for that situation?
Yeah, I'll go. I would say don't be afraid to ever ask for help or just ask questions. One thing that we like to say is you're really only new once, or just like you have this opportunity once, so ask all of the questions. So much of the time you're in meetings and they're using acronyms or they're using abbreviations and you're just like, what is happening? Take the time to ask those questions. And a lot of the time, other people who maybe also new will have the same questions, or it's just a great grounding point for us. I think that's what's been really helpful for our team and having an internship this year is we're all kind of continually learning more about the company, the roles, the projects that we're all individually working on. So it's a great way to just continue asking questions, ask for clarification, and really just take notes and document them. Also, if you don't have time in the meeting to ask the question, just write it down, jot it down, ask someone later. And I think what's helpful for me as well was understanding like the company's mission and purpose really, and like what really are the big decision factors and like making the decision. What do the leaders really look at? What are the core values, the mission, the purpose, and something that LL Bean is really strongly towards. We focus on those. So that's something that we always like to communicate early on to really help the interns gauge that understanding of that's really where we're making our big decisions. We're looking at these factors.
Awesome. Yeah.
think that's great advice, Mina. First of all, remember that as new employees, you have fresh eyes. And so again, that's another thing you bring as new employees is asking questions. Why do we do this? And sometimes as new employees, you see maybe the way that an organization is doing it isn't the right way. And so that's, I think, something every organization appreciates with new people. But I think it's very similar to what Mina just said, is really understand the values and the mission, the strategic plan of your organization, and then demonstrate it. At Bangor Savings Bank, it's all about you matter more, and you matter more starts with employee to employee. So if you know your company culture really values teamwork, then demonstrate teamwork. If you know that we're a community bank and our focus is on community, then be like the first one to volunteer to do community service, right? So it's really about demonstrating your alignment with your organization's values. The second thing is as you're doing your work, as you're performing your tasks and doing project as an intern, is make sure that you're linking your work to the strategic plan and ask questions. So when you're working with your manager or talking to a senior leader, talk about how your work and your project is aligned and connected to different strategic initiatives. That way, you're connecting the dots, and that's something really important. To me, is I want employees that not only can do individual work, but someone who is really understanding how the organization works, how to kind of connect their own work with strategy. And for me personally, when I link my work to a bigger purpose, it gives me more meaning and more impact. And I feel like that's just a really great strategy for you long-term career is if you know you're contributing to a bigger thing than you, a bigger, the organization as a whole, I think you can find great fulfillment from that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'll also add to that as well, Meg. There is that again. I really do like that. What both David and Mina had mentioned too is that company culture. You have to identify, what the company's missions are, and then I think it's not a one size fits all for each person. Each person is very unique, right? Each person has their own unique set of skills and talents, and I think molding that with the company's culture is very important if you're looking for long term employment with a company. And a lot of companies, and I'll speak on Intermed as well, is that they have big goals for 2028 and 2030. And so if I can recognize what my unique set of skills are and say, okay, where are we trying to go by 2030? How can I kind of move my skills in the right direction so that I can be a good asset to the team? And it's just about understanding what your unique skill sets are and what you're really good at. And internships also provide a great opportunity to kind of learn about how you're going to be able to do that and after that internship. So it's very much on what you want personally and who you are as a person and how you can add to the company's culture and their values.
Yeah, absolutely. Carrying on with that sort of theme of personal contribution to that company culture, and thinking about making connections interpersonally at your company or organization. Jacob, we'll start with you. Is there anything that you can think of that you did in your personal experience during either of your internships or in your most recent experience at Intermed that you feel was successful in building strong relationships with coworkers and supervisors as a young professional?
Yeah, so I do like this question because it does relate to a recent event. So one of my managers at Maine Health, the director of credentialing data management, Pam Bulow, she was really pushing a new software package at Maine Health, and so what I did was I was an intern in that division, that department. I believe one of the first interns for that certain department there. And so what I did was I went to her office every single morning. I'd ask, what are some things that I could do to help you today? We built a very unique relationship to that. We still text and call and have, conversation, have lunch. I just had lunch with her a few weeks ago. It's just relationships like that are very meaningful and you never know what's going to happen. And she actually happened to call me one day. I was working at a prior position and she said, "Hey, I have a friend that might be interested in your skill sets. Would you have time to do a Teams call?" And so that led to another opportunity. So I think it's important to go to those your mentors, your managers, your supervisors, coworkers, and say, hey, how can we help each other? How can we build a good, lasting, long relationship? Because I want to, I want to be able to provide and take a network here. But ultimately, two things run the world, I believe, is incentives and relationships. And if you can master those two things, you're set with your career. So.
That's thanks for sharing that story. That's really cool to hear. David and Mina, how do you see interns successfully building some of these strong relationships with coworkers and supervisors, and what kind of an impact do you think that has on their experience long term with the company toward through the end of the summer, through future opportunities?
Well, I think Jacob just, demonstrated, it's all about relationships. Work is about relationships, and your network and the people will make your careers, I think, really successful, can help you sort of, accelerate your career. So it's really about relationships. So I think the important part is if you're a very extroverted person, maybe this is going to come very easy to you. But again, be inquisitive and really connect with people daily. Sort of set goals for yourself every week. Who are some of the people, in the organization that you really want to meet with? Really consider about like, what are you trying to gain from them? You're trying to gain their knowledge. You're trying to gain their insight into their careers and sort of any advice they may have for you. You also should be really aware that you're looking for people who can talk about you, right? One of the best parts of an internship is now, if you do really great work, you can have multiple professionals who can really talk about your work ethic, your work skills, and why you would make a really good employee. And that could make the difference as to why you get a position over someone else because you have, professional leaders who are on your side, who are in your corner and can talk about you. So again, not only build relationships for the sense of building them, but what is it that you want to gain from each person? And I would say if you can interact and meet a new person, 3 people a week, by the end of the summer, that's a lot of people that that can be part of your network and that could be talking positively about you to others. Because that's part of what your reputation is, right? It's not just who you put on your reference list to sort of say, well, David's my reference. But if somebody knows you work for a bank or a savings bank, they may just call the department you worked in and said, how did Meg do last summer? So it's not just the one person. Everyone that interacted with you this summer could technically be helping or hurting you based upon the work that you did as an intern.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, to what both David and Jacob had said. I think one thing that I like to remember is because not everyone is an extrovert, it can be very hard to kind of start the networking, building the relationships, like who do I start with? Your manager and supervisor are a wonderful place to start, but I even say just like when you're in the cafeteria and like in a line, just like turn to the people left and right and say hi, introduce yourself, have your small elevator pitch, and really like ask them if you'd be willing to like if they'd be willing to have a meeting with you, set up an informational interview with them, and really just like start building all of those relationships. I think is really important is like you can really find relationships and start building them anywhere in the company. And like to what David said, anyone could be your reference. You never know. So just always kind of trying to make that positive impact. And then also knowing that like you can help them as much as they can help you. So always just like putting out that plug, letting them know that you're available, willing to learn, willing to help is always just really important as well.
Yeah, I love that. Um,
Nick,
and
did you see that there's 3 very specific questions about
yes,
relationship?
I
So
was,
we might
yeah,
want to just continue this, right?
yeah,
So the
absolutely. I
question
was
is,
just going to turn that over to you.
yeah, so the questions were how do you develop relationships when you're working primarily remotely? Sort of how do you reach out or connect with senior executive leaders? And then Kempton asked, is it better to have deep relationships with 2 or 3 people or try to have fairly strong connections with 10 to 15? So Jacob or
Mm.
Mina, do you want to kind of start with those answers and I can finalize anything that you didn't talk about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Sorry.
go, Jacob.
Okay, thanks. I like to hit on the last question you had asked David there about having deep relationships with two or three people, or just, somewhat of a network or connection with 10 or 15. Honestly, with my experience, having a deeper connection with two or three people at the organization, I think, is a lot better than having a quantity. So quality over quantity in this case. I know that, if you're on LinkedIn, you connect and you have all these connections, but if you could really dial into a couple folks, whether they're in leadership or close coworkers, and build really good relationships, they want to, see you do well, and especially if they're in a management position, they may help, escalate or expedite you to a different position that you might be interested in. So to answer that question, I think it's important to have two or three really good, strong relationships you can rely on, even post internship or post employment occupation.
Thanks, Jacob.
So I don't have much to add to that one, but I'll talk about the relationship building when you're primarily remote.
Thanks.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so we are LL Bean's a hybrid organization. I think you'll find that with most organizations that you're either at or applying to or looking at. It definitely can be challenging, but I will say that one thing that's super helpful is just understanding that the company's hybrid. So whether this person's in the office more or always in the office or always remote, people are always willing and able to jump on the call with you. They could be home, they could be anywhere, kind of depending. And just don't let that intimidate you, knowing that it's on the screen versus a face to face in person. Sometimes it's easier to set up a virtual call with schedules and moving things around. So honestly, some people might appreciate it more than in person. But really, I think maybe finding those people and who to connect with might be a little harder virtually. So I would say like reach out to your supervisor and ask questions like who do you think I should connect with based on my interest and priorities for the summer and goals, or even when you're in a meeting, just kind of look at people's titles, look at their teams, look at org charts is what I always say. Like the org charts are interns' best friends to kind of see how everyone is connected in the work that they're doing. And it's as simple as just reaching out for an informational chat and just sending them an email. I would definitely recommend you setting up the time if you are reaching out to them. But just setting up the 15, 30-minute call with them and just have some answers or questions ready for them and just have a wonderful conversation. And I feel like that's really what it takes. I understand that, like, obviously remote is a little bit harder, but just understanding like everyone is willing to jump on a call, and sometimes it really is easier for them. And then I completely agree with Jacob. Having like a few really, really meaningful relationships and strong connections, I think can go a lot farther than having touch bases with a larger quantity of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I mean, I think Mina, you totally, nailed the remote work. But all I would say, all I would add to that, to your answer, is that if you are coming into the location, make sure that you've scheduled, meet it face-to-face meetings. Make sure you're spending time with the other interns. We were just doing our personal brand statements and our storyboards, and we're just laughing over, food, and a couple of our management trainees and interns kind of said, "Hey, let's play golf." And so sometimes that very informal connection is so important. So when you do meet people in person, just make sure you use your time wisely. And again, I totally agree with Mina and Jacob that having a few really deep relationships is super important. But I would come a little bit at it a different way. Part of creating a network is all you're trying to do is connect people and build relationships where you're not asking for anything now. So to me, along with those two or three really deep relationships, you should try to connect with more people, because one of those people could be really important to you in the future. And that's part of it. Is like, part of networking is not asking for anything. It's just building people who might be available to you or that you might be able to help in the future. And I think the only question we have not answered yet is, so how do you connect with senior leaders and executives? I know at Bangor Savings Bank, like our interns met with our CEO. So it's something that we believe is really important, to interact with them, with our CEO and with other senior leaders. They'll actually be presenting their presentations to the bank's leadership at the end of the summer. So it's really important they feel comfortable But if that's not built into your education, like you would go to me, you would go to your intern manager and just sort of say, is there an opportunity for me to meet leaders and determine within your culture how can that best be done? I'm missing the bank's leadership team meeting right now because I'm with you all. But if we didn't have this built in and somebody really wanted to meet some senior leaders, I would certainly find ways for them. So I think you just have to ask. It's so important that you ask. Anything that you need that you think will be valuable to you for your internship, ask. Maybe you'll be told no, but I think in most circumstances, your employers want you to feel a part of their organization and feel like you really belong. And knowing the senior leaders, at least some of them, is really important for you. Just to see they're just people like everybody else. You should never be intimidated by them. And if that's what you're striving to be, you do want to hear their stories about. And I think that's it. They like to talk about themselves. So ask them questions about their career and any advice that they would give you as interns in terms of having a really successful career.
Yeah, I love that. And glad folks had more questions. This is exactly what we're here to talk about. Continuing on this path of like internal networking, like you've landed this position, but how do you maximize it with all of the people that you get to meet at your own workplace? Um, David and Mina, what tips do you have for interns who may want to explore other departments or other roles while managing their position this summer? And how can they communicate this interest to their supervisors to use this internship as a career exploration opportunity, but also knowing that they're here to complete a set of tasks or projects as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about prioritization, right? So, I mean, make sure it's very clear what you have to do on a day to day, week to week, summer basis. So you meet those first. Clearly, meet all of the other interns and all of the key people that are working with you. You want to take advantage of all these incredible education, networking, and social events that Main Career Catalyst is doing for you. Pick the ones that will enhance your experience. And then if you have time left over, I would really spend the first few weeks, like right now, just really like looking at which other departments really interest you and maybe prioritize like the top three areas that you're most interested in and just ask. And part of this is sometimes also asking a senior leader. So for instance, I know that if somebody's interested in finance, I can clearly have them go spend some time in finance. But in banking, we have where all of our decisions about how we make money, all of our investments, all of kind of our risks with money, it's kind of done in a meeting called ALCO. So although I think it would be beneficial for people to go spend an hour or so in our finance department, I think a more meaningful experience for a finance intern who really wanted to understand how banking worked would be to go and attend an ALCO meeting. And that's something I could set up. So again, just remember, talk to people right around you, but also try to get one senior leader who can kind of get you connected to those kinds of things like an ALCO meeting in a bank. Not everyone may have access to them, but we can get you access if you ask.
Yeah, yeah, just adding on to what David said, I think communicating really to your direct supervisor or senior leader is really important about really what you're looking for. We have our interns really kind of set out goals for them and what they're really looking for at the end of the 9, 10 weeks, and then anything other interests. So even if you're interning in HR but might have an interest in another area of HR or in finance, accounting, supply chain, anything on top of kind of their regular tasks and projects and day-to-days, we do ensure to kind of let them touch base and give them the names that they need to really have a informational interview with them, just a touch base with them to really learn about the role that they could be interested in that department. But another thing that I've realized in the past is that the interns are talking all the time to each other. So just having them talk to about each other about their work and the projects that they're doing always kind of piques interest for other interns. And they're like, ooh, maybe I could sit in on a meeting on this project that you're working on, or hey, like, do you think we could just meet quickly to talk about this project that's really something that I'm looking for, or that's really something I'm interested in. So they're making their own connections too, which is really great to see, but they're constantly just letting each other know, updating each other on the work that they're doing, and they're always all really interested in it. So that's something that we've seen that's been super successful of kind of showing interns their other departments and exposing them to new areas of the companies as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jacob, from your perspective throughout your internships, were you able to explore different opportunities throughout the organizations, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I like this question because I hear David and Mina talking about these ways of asking and asking for support and reaching out to those managers and executives to get you in on those meetings. I did it a different approach. I actually would like cold email, cold text, like show up at the desk and hey, can you have a quick chat, right? Like I did a very different way. It's probably not the best method because it does lead to some awkward scenarios. But I think if you put yourself in that situation, they'll kind of see, okay, this intern is really interested in learning more, and they might give you a little more time. Because let's face it, a lot of folks are really busy. It's it might be a summer season, depending on when they're in finance, their fiscal year end, depending on their department. But I think it's important to really just be a little extrovert and maybe go and visit a department and reach out over Teams. And sometimes it's that a possible email might not work, but find different ways to reach out. And I was able to explore different depart or opportunities in departments. For example, at Unum, there were plenty different. If you're interning there now, you'll see there's plenty different divisions. I would schedule coffee chats for like 15 minutes. I would go to the coffee stand they have right at the front. If you're interning there, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'd go up there and I'd talk to random people. I was in the breakfast line. I mean, I would do some really weird stuff, but it would help me out in the long run because you meet some great people. But yeah, just being a little extroverted, having those small chats every morning. I mean, you really will stand out.
That's awesome. I love that, Jacob. And just what a great way of utilizing the unique position that you're in as interns, or people expect you to ask them questions that they may not hear from other people. And I think, as David and Mina have both said, people love to talk about themselves and their job. So if you can figure out a way to put yourself out there, you'll make a lot of connections that way. Um, Transitioning in a little bit towards using this internship as a potential stepping stone, exploring different career paths. And this is similar to a question that we've gotten in the chat. So I wanted to make sure that we chatted a little bit about this. But if interns know that they want to pursue a career at the organization, either immediately after their internship or post grad, how do you see interns successfully communicating that interest and setting themselves up for success? And then on the flip side, the question we got in the chat was, what kind of mistakes do you see when interns are turning these internships into long-term jobs? And a little plug before you all answer that towards the end of the summer, we are going to have an intern towards to full-time career conversation, much like this one, but I still wanted to touch on this as people are starting out their summers. So that's a question for all three of you.
My advice is to, do it often, do it early and do it often. Not in an obnoxious way, not in a really aggressive way, but if you like what you're seeing, if you're really enjoying your internship and you could see yourself working there past the summer, then express interest. Express interest to your manager and anyone who's coordinating you have to remember that for most organizations, this is a major way for us to create talent pool. So we are looking to convert interns into employees and actually measure our success with our internship on how many interns we can convert. So again, why not be fully transparent about that? Me with you and you with us. So my feelings are is if you have interest in exploring a part-time job, if you're local, can I do a part-time job? If you're going to school away from the employer, ask if there's opportunities for you to do, remote research if you have time to do that or some like independent project. But you definitely want to be very aware of like when do you apply if you're going to just go back to school and enjoy that. But when when are opportunities posted? How do you potentially convert into a full-time job? Be very, very aware of it. So we have converted many of our interns into our management training program. And so I usually will let those people know, talk to me in the fall, and then we post those positions January 1st and wrap up by March so they know they have a job. So again, just state that you're really interested in possibly part-time or full-time work. Be honest about it. Yeah, don't lead people along with it if you really don't want it. If you change your mind somewhere along the way, just be honest about what you're feeling at any given time. But just tell us what you want.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the sooner the better for us to know, just because we are aware, at least my HR team is always aware of like new positions kind of coming up. So we are able to kind of put in plugs if we need to. But one thing that I have seen for interns that are kind of going back to school or are close to graduation and aren't yet there is they're just constantly, if they are interested in an opportunity full time, they're constantly getting in contact with us, their manager that they are in during the internship. They're also whether they're giving the opportunity for them to work part-time, whether it's a few hours a week, but just helping out because a lot of the time we really do look for the interns to help with a lot of the tasks that we have for the summer of real work. So when they leave, it's kind of like, oh no, like we're missing a whole other head from the team. So anything, we've had so many interns do part-time work, and then once they've graduated, then they're just it's an easy transition to full-time work and almost the same team. So that's something that we see a lot, but just still like the open communication, the sooner we're aware is better. And then we also kind of always have like a list or in the back of our mind our awareness of the interns that are graduating. So we do kind of make sure that we stay in contact with them, just if seeing their plans, making sure that we're up to date. If they aren't looking, that's fine. If they are looking, kind of making sure that we're making and getting them the right connections that they want in the company too, or outside the company. So just always kind of keeping an ear out for anything more we hear about what they're kind of looking for and out of the internship for their career in general.
And Mina, is there anything that you can point to in your own career as you transitioned from intern to full-time at LL Bean that you feel contributed to that successful transition?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would say was just the relationships. That really is one of the big things. Thankfully I am on the same team that I was interned with, so obviously a fabulous team. But I would say just like building those relationships as I was an intern was super helpful. And then building relationships with people in HR too. So I help a lot with like corporate learning and our internal communications team. So during my internship, I was helping in bits and pieces with those teams, even though it wasn't directly talent acquisition, but I'm still working on a lot of those projects today. So that's one thing that was really helpful for me to transition was, okay, this is like my talent acquisition path, but opening up doors for other HR paths is also something that I've never wanted to keep myself narrow on one path. I've always just kind of wanted to always explore other areas. So just I always had my hand up. I was always like, yes, what can I help with? If there's anything in HR, like going to other senior leaders, going to other managers and being like, hey, I noticed that you had this project. Do you think like there's any way for me to help or just listen in on meetings, shadow you for an afternoon about when you're doing this project was super helpful. And I just was able to make those connections now, and I'm really grateful for them because I've been able to make connections with people in HR that like people on my team don't even have connections with. So it's just almost like a little leg up.
That's awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. I knew people would be curious. Um, and we're gonna wrap up this.
Can I just
Yeah.
Meg, the question about have we ever seen an intern do something wrong in terms of like asking for work? I just kind of want to just mention one little thing, and that is the only. I mean, I think as long as you're saying you want to work, then I think that's a positive thing. I think I have seen some folks try to be very limiting in what they see themselves doing. So that's something that we spent a fair amount of time at Bangor Savings Bank is kind of looking at who you are rather than what you want to do, because oftentimes I think students can come in with a limited view of what they can do or the job they should be doing. And so I would say don't limit yourself. I have actually seen some of the most successful interns for us be interns who started with one skill set, sort of worked on a project that developed a new skill set, and then sort of came in as a full-time person doing a completely different skill set. So I would say the most successful people are those that keep adjusting and demonstrating all of their strengths, not just kind of focusing on one part of their natural skills. And we have people who are interning 5-6 years ago who are having great success now because they have kept adjusting to the needs of our organization and changing jobs. So I would just say, don't limit yourself to
Yeah.
one job. Keep the options totally open.
Yeah, that's super helpful advice, especially as internships really are a career exploration tool. So certainly not the time to pigeonhole yourself into anything in particular. Before we head over to any questions you all have, so just a plug to continue asking questions using the Q&A feature. We'll continue to be reading through those, but wanted to close out this portion. And David, you kind of segued us into this nicely, but hearing from Mina and David, if there's anything additional you want to share, I would love to hear a story about an intern that really stood out to you and what they did to be super successful. And then Jacob, when we hand it back to you, we'll be looking for you to reflect a little bit on your internship and what made the biggest difference in your success there.
Yeah, I did think about this for a little bit. So one intern, he interned with us 2 years ago. We met him at Jumpstart at UMaine Orono. I actually wasn't there, but two of our recruiters were there, and just the first impression was they can never get over that first impression. He just came up, smile, just was like gave his skill set, really made that first impression, and like more less of I want a job and more of I'm here. How can I help you? And where can I help in the company and where are the gaps? He works in our information systems area of the company. So what he did, we had him apply for our internship in that area. He got through, he got the internship. And then over the summer, he was connecting with everyone in the company, not just IS. So yes, the IS leaders, but us in HR, in supply chain, in accounting, and just really wanted to get an idea of what the company was and really how he could help. He took a lot of time looking at our company goals and our vision for the next 5 years and 10 years. And so he was able to have a whole project really about how his work connects to those and how it can continue connecting. He was a second, first semester senior, so he had one semester left at UMaine. So he did stay on with us temporarily, probably in like a 20-hour per week capacity, and same team. And he just continued to connect with his manager. When he graduated in December, there wasn't any open positions for him, but he continued to stay connected, which was really important because in I think March of the following year, so last year, he saw an open position. He reached out to his manager right away. He applied right away, and then he just connected with her to just not even as an interview, just more of how can I take some of my transferable skills that I used this summer to this interview process? Can you look at my resume? Just as like another connection that he used her for. And then he was successful in the interview process and does have the role with us now. But he really says that a huge reason he has been so successful is because of his relationship building. He has just really stayed connected to us on the talent team, and he's constantly showing passion. He's joining a whole bunch of our employee business resource groups. He's helping with a lot of community outreach as well. So he's just plugging himself into so many places of the
That's
business that
awesome.
I can't go to a meeting where I'm like, oh yeah, there he is. He's always
Yeah,
there.
that's
So it's great to
incredible.
just see that success.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pass it off to Jacob for his final words of reflection. He was kind enough to join us, even though he has another appointment directly after this conversation. So, in your last few minutes, Jacob, if you would look back on that internship and think about what was the one thing or the few things that may have made the biggest difference, and then we'll thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Meg. Yeah, a couple things. I know I mentioned it a couple times where being ambitious and being curious is really important. I've never like let go of those values or those parts of me. Even though I did internships, I did those in full-time employment as well. I like the fact that Mina had shared that story about that intern, attending different meetings, and getting to know the company as a whole is really important. So, having those sort of values and carrying those with you throughout your careers is, those aren't just left at the internship at the end. Those are carried forward, and also attend events, in Portland if you're in Portland, if you're around Maine, not just MCC. I know MCC is great. A full summer worth of events. But after, attend, Maine Business got great events. I say this because, you can really make other meaningful connections outside after your internship is done by attending other events that you may not have direct correlation to, but may have a slight interest in. So keeping that networking, the networking skill carrying forward for the rest of your career and never letting go of that. That's really important. So.
Thanks so much, Jacob. It's been super insightful to hear all of these tips directly from you and hopefully inspired a bunch of interns watching. So with that, thank you, Jacob. You can drop off whenever you need to. And if anyone has questions for Jacob that they don't have time to ask, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and I can always pass them along to him. But thanks so much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And for folks who are still here, do continue to ask questions in the chat in the Q&A box for David and Mina. We'll turn things over to the Q&A portion. And I will start with one that I see in the webinar chat, which is what advice would you give to international students trying to navigate the professional landscape in Maine? Followed up by how willing are you guys to give international students a chance to prove themselves as well? So a big question, but would love to hear some insight from you both.
Yeah, David, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, thank you so much for the question. I think this is a really important question with what's happening right now politically, right, in the United States. But I think just more so in terms of, still understanding that Maine is evolving. I think with its work around diversity as a diversity officer in Maine, this is really important to me. And, we do have interns who are international students. We have management trainees who are international students. And we actually are wrapping up 6-month co-ops with with 8 international STEM students. So we have been working really diligently with international students over the past 6 months, and they're just getting ready to present to leadership at both the Rue Institute and here at Bangor Savings Bank. I was also part of a panel that was done by Live Work in Maine with the Rue Institute and Bangor Savings Bank. We were speaking to a number of employers throughout Maine, and I would just sort of say is Maine employers are still learning about international students visas. So I would just, if you are an international student, you may have to educate your employer a bit about your ability to work in the United States. From my perspective, it's very easy to navigate. I'm very aware of how visas work. I know for STEM students, graduate STEM students and STEM students, they can work in the United States 3 years after they graduate. So there's a lot of things that I think we still need to educate employers. But I know at LL Bean and I know at Bangor Savings Bank, certainly we are very supportive of international workers. We want international students to be part of our makeup because you do add so much to the richness of our work. And so I would just say, hopefully you're working for a company that really sees your value as an international student. And if not, try to educate them. And if not, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I would be more than glad to talk to you about some companies that I think are very aware of your value and just maybe help you guide towards those organizations to start.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I personally will be honest, I have know very little about visas. But I will say we partner with the Rue. David, I was at that event. That was just so insightful. And I learned so much just about the whole process and really like what the company kind of needs to provide, what they're looking for, the different resources that students and companies have, which I think there's just continual education in Maine for a lot of large companies about really just learning like what is the process, what are our resources. So we work with the Rue, we have co-op students, we have international students, we have international employees. So definitely something we understand, like the value that you all provide for us and our business. So like David said, reach out if you have any questions. I wouldn't be able to give you as many resources as David about that, so possibly reaching out to him. But one thing that is super helpful for us, where we are a little bit newer in the space, is just providing us with as much as upfront information as you can. Either when you're applying, when you're interviewing, when you start with us, that's always super helpful for us to really have all the information so we can make sure that everything goes smoothly for the duration of the employment.
Great. That's some great practical advice and next steps. Um, a question that I have is we've talked about a little bit about how to pursue this internship as a stepping stone if you're really excited about this as a career. But what advice do you have for interns for in terms of making the most of their internship experience, even if they're not sure that it's the career that they want? We know that internships are career exploration tools. Sometimes you find out that it's not the career for you. And in that case, what can interns do to continue to make the most out of all of the other things that they can learn that summer?
Yeah, I mean, I think to know what you don't like is as valuable to know what you like. So I would try to expose yourself to every and anything you can, because again, eliminating the things that you don't like. But I think a lot of times when we do career development, we're still trying to look for that one job. And I just want to again, articulate, you've been socialized that there's like one job for you. There's 100 jobs you can do incredibly well. So don't limit yourself. The second part is it is not just like what your major is or even what your primary strength is. Part of the internship and part of being successful in your career is to know yourself. So I'm just a firm believer that your internship should also be a reflection period. I am asking a lot of self-reflection questions. That's kind of how we do our personal brand, is just really going from like what I'm going to do to who do I want to be. So I think asking yourself, like, what do you value? What are your passions? What does successful look like for you? Just continuing to ask questions and reflect is valuable, because you'll find the things that you really value in work, and you'll find things that you don't align well with. And one of my advices that I give to all of our interns and all of our young professionals is be very structured and deliberate about how you do this. So, like on Monday, you should get up and say, okay, what do I want to accomplish this week? Who do I want to meet this week? What do I want to learn this week? And just really focus on that. If you do that every Monday for the scope of your internship, that's a lot of questions to ask. And hopefully it gives you real directions. Then on Wednesday, it's just a really good time to just reflect. How am I doing against those goals? What else do I need to make any adjustments? Do I need more resource? Do I need help with this? So I think just kind of reflecting on why maybe progress is being made or not being made against those goals. And then on Friday, you just want to celebrate. You just want to say, I'm so proud that I accomplished this. I met these people. I learned this. And I think that kind of self reflection, you will see so much growth from when you start until you end. And that to me is one of the purposes of this as well, is for you to just feel more confident in your personal strengths, your professional attributes, and just overall, like, I'm amazing, I'm awesome, and I'm going to be an incredible professional.
Mhm. Yeah, David, I love that. I don't have anything big to add to that because I know there's some questions in the Q&A, so I just want to make sure we have time for that.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. Um, well, I think the next one I'll ask is from Kempton. You all have mentioned first impressions a few times. What are some strategies and advice for successful first impressions while staying true to that personal brand?
Yeah, I think one thing for me is really just showing the initiative to even just go up to someone and say like, "Hi," introducing yourself, but really taking the initiative, asking the questions, being curious, and showing that curiosity. It could be as small as, "Hey, like I noticed this product. You might want to think about this," or just like giving a little bit of input is sometimes helpful. But I would say successful first impressions are really just like showing your confidence in yourself, knowing the work that you are. And also, one thing that I tell our interns is you made it. Like you're here, you're at the company. Like that's already just amazing in itself. So really do just like be yourself in this space because that's what got you here.
Love that.
Best advice, be it yourself, be authentic, And I think just knowing when to enhance that and when to tone it down. I talk about like sometimes you raise the volume of your authentic self, sometimes you diminish it. So I think just kind of figuring out when do you put it on high volume and maybe when you put it on soft volume. But I think as long as you are yourself, that's the best first impression. And that's the consistency in which somebody will really get to know you. It's not just the first impression. It's like, do I keep seeing the same person? And that's like a really positive thing for me when I keep seeing the same person over and over in a lot of different situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our final question for today will be from Chloe. How do we approach connecting with new people on LinkedIn? And how do we use LinkedIn to strengthen ourselves? So another plug for a future event, our Headshots and Handshakes event at USM will be an opportunity to dive deeper into this topic, but figured this is a good one to end on. I know you both are fans of LinkedIn and using it to connect with interns and other professionals, so thought we could end here.
Yeah. We use LinkedIn all the time, whether it's for sourcing new employees, getting outreach for people, just connections. I think always making the connections. I definitely understand like the hesitancy first for LinkedIn. It's like it's very different than any other social media though. So like it's used as a professional resource. So that's one thing that I like to just tell people is that don't feel hesitated to just reach out. Like any of you on this webinar, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's always really great getting a little message with your LinkedIn, like, hey, met you at an MCC event, like, would love to stay connected. And then just in that, you kind of make the relationships by seeing the reposts, seeing jobs that come up, and just like continually staying connected. But it is definitely the first great stepping stone to make that connection with people.
Yeah, absolutely, Mina. It is the professional network platform. So you need to make sure you have a great profile. Talk about first impressions. Like, if you're looking like a college student, maybe that isn't the most professional thing. So make sure you have a great professional headshot. Make sure you have a headline. Like I don't have the opportunity at the time to look at every detail of your LinkedIn profile, but I will definitely look at your headline. So make sure that the things you want to highlight about yourself, make it in headline. Same thing, I think, with a resume. And again, I think as Mina said, is when you connect, it can be something very simple. Like I saw you on the webinar today. Hey, can we connect? Like easy peasy, right? We can connect. But then I think the real value and the real difficult thing is how do we stay in touch? So we've now done the initial connection. You've reached out to me. We've linked in. What else do we do? So again, for me, it's very simple. I just want to know that you're around and I need to keep you kind of top of mind. I've thousands and thousands of people on LinkedIn. So like just when you have a really great activity or event or have done something really cool in your internship, just send me a note and just say, oh my God, I was just thinking like I made a great first impression or I had this great interaction with one of our senior leaders and I just wanted to let you know I did that. And then like if you're interested in working, with me or if I can help you with your job search after graduation, just saying you offer to help me in my job search. Here's what I'm looking for. Who do you know in Maine? Because I know a lot of HR people. So who do you know in Maine that might be looking for someone like me? Right. So, but part of it is you've got to keep yourself present because if you just come and we connect and then you don't come back and talk to me again until you want a job, then it's going to feel very one-sided. But if you keep me in the loop of what you're doing and like I know that what's happening for you, I'm going to help you so much more when you really need something down the road. So remember, it's not just the initial contact, it's ongoing contacts of just keeping somebody being aware of you and keeping you kind of top of mind.
Well, thank you so much, David and Mina, and thank you all for sticking around with us at lunch and hopefully getting inspired, getting some new ideas for how to go make a bunch of connections after lunch today. Um, and yeah, feel free to connect with us all on LinkedIn. We're looking forward to continuing to see you all at a bunch of events. And yeah, David and Mina, I can't thank you enough for that really insightful conversation.
Thank you.
All right, we'll end it there. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Take
Bye. Thank
care.
you.